My mom wants me to give up my house for my sister. Am I wrong to refuse? I'm going through a really intense and complicated situation with my family, and it's been weighing heavily on me for months. My name is Adam, 35M, and I've always tried to maintain a decent relationship with my family, despite some long-standing issues. Right now, the focus of all this drama is my younger sister, Sarah, 32F, and her husband, Matt, 34M. They're both unemployed, in a difficult financial spot, and now Sarah is pregnant, which just seems to have escalated everything. Let me give you a little background. Sarah and Matt have always struggled to maintain steady jobs. It's not that they're bad people or lazy, but it seems like something always goes wrong for them. They've both had job after job, and somehow, nothing sticks. Either Sarah quits because of some issue with a boss, or Matt gets laid off because the company downsizes. Meanwhile, I've worked hard to maintain stability in my life. I have a steady job, a supportive wife, Julia, 30F, and we recently bought a house together. It's our dream home, a symbol of everything we've worked for, and we've been planning to start a family here soon. Here's the kicker: my mom, Ellen, 63F, has always favored Sarah, and I've been aware of this for as long as I can remember. It's not even subtle anymore. Growing up, Sarah was the golden child, and it didn't matter what she did or didn't do, Mom always made sure Sarah was taken care of. If Sarah got into trouble, Mom would swoop in to save her, while I was left to fend for myself. This favoritism has caused tension in the family for years, but it's never been as bad as it is now. Recently, my mom approached me with a shocking proposition. She asked if I would let Sarah and Matt move into my house because, according to her, they needed it more. She reasoned that since Sarah was pregnant and unemployed, it was only fair that they live in our home, at least until they get back on their feet. To say I was stunned is an understatement. My house isn't just a building to me. It represents years of hard work and saving. Julia and I bought it a few years ago, and since then, we've put a lot of love, time, and money into making it our own. We've painted the walls, redone the kitchen, and are already imagining where we'll put the nursery when we start our family. This house is where we've built our life together, and the thought of giving it up, even temporarily, for Sarah and Matt, people who have repeatedly made poor life choices, is beyond frustrating. But of course, in my mom's eyes, Sarah's pregnancy trumps all of that. She seems to think that, because I don't have children yet, I can afford to make this sacrifice. "You don't even have kids yet, Adam," she said to me, as if that made any difference. Sarah and Matt are struggling. They need a stable place for the baby. You and Julia can always find another house later. The sheer unfairness of it all makes my blood boil. Sarah, of course, has fully embraced this narrative. She feels entitled to this help because she's always been bailed out of tough situations. I've lost count of how many times she's run into problems, whether it's financial issues, relationship drama, or job instability, and my mom has swooped in to fix things for her. When we were kids, if Sarah didn't do well in school, my mom would make excuses for her. If I didn't do well, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough. There was one particular incident that still stings when I think about it. I had just gotten my first real job out of college and was incredibly proud of myself. I was eager to tell my mom the good news, but when I got home, she barely looked up from the kitchen table. Why? Because Sarah had broken up with her boyfriend, and my mom was completely engrossed in comforting her. My big accomplishment meant nothing in the face of Sarah's latest emotional crisis. And this pattern has continued ever since. Now, with the house situation, it feels like history is repeating itself, only this time, the stakes are much higher. This isn't just about being overlooked for a few hours, it's about my entire future, my home, and my sense of security. Yet, despite all this, my mom keeps trying to guilt-trip me into agreeing to this absurd request. She says things like, "You're not going to let your sister and her baby live on the streets, are you? And you can always start fresh, Adam." Sarah doesn't have that luxury. The pressure she's putting on me is immense. Every time we talk, it's the same thing: Sarah needs your help. This is what family does for each other. Don't you care about your sister's well-being? And the worst part is, Sarah isn't helping the situation at all. Instead of acknowledging that they should have made better financial choices or that they should be finding a solution on their own, she seems to believe that it's my duty to rescue her. Matt, for his part, hasn't said much directly to me, but I can tell he's banking on my mom's manipulation tactics working. He's always been more passive, letting Sarah and my mom lead the charge. The few times he's spoken to me about it, he's just said things like, "We really appreciate any help you can give us," without ever acknowledging how much they're asking. Julia, thankfully, is fully on my side. She's been my rock through all of this. We've had countless late-night conversations about how unfair this is, and she keeps reminding me that we shouldn't be expected to give up something so significant just because my sister's life is a mess. She's made it clear that she doesn't want to give up our home, and frankly, neither do I. We've worked too hard to just hand it over. But standing my ground has come with consequences. My mom is disappointed, to say the least. She's frustrated with me, acting like I'm being selfish for not helping family. In her eyes, I'm the one causing the tension in the family by refusing to do the right thing. She's constantly making little digs, saying things like, "I never thought you'd be the kind of person who turns their back on family." And it hurts, even though I know deep down that I'm not in the wrong. Sarah, predictably, is upset. She's been distant with me since I said no, and when we do talk, it's clear that she feels like I've betrayed her. In one conversation, she flat out said, "I thought you'd be more understanding, Adam. You know how hard things have been for us. But what about how hard things have been for me and Julia? It's not like we just stumbled into this house. We worked for it." Other members of the family are starting to take sides, which is only making things worse. Some of my aunts and uncles think I should help Sarah, especially now that there's a baby involved. "It's not forever," one of them told me. "You can always get another house later. But babies don't wait." Others, like my cousin Rachel, 29F, are on my side. "You've worked too hard for this," she told me. "Sarah and Matt need to figure this out on their own. This whole situation is tearing the family apart." What was once a relatively peaceful, albeit tense, family dynamic has turned into a full-blown war. Every family gathering is awkward now, with people giving me dirty looks or whispering behind my back. Even though I know I'm making the right choice, it's hard not to feel like I'm the bad guy sometimes. I've spent many sleepless nights wondering if I'm being too harsh. Should I just give in to keep the peace? Am I being selfish for wanting to protect what's mine? But then I remember why I'm standing my ground. This house isn't just a piece of property. It's where Julia and I have built our life. It's where we plan to raise our children, where we've already invested so much of our time, energy, and money. Giving it up, even temporarily, would be a huge sacrifice, one that we shouldn't be expected to make just because Sarah and Matt can't get their act together. I'm also tired of being the family member who's always expected to bend for Sarah's sake. There comes a point where you have to draw a line, and for me, that line is this house. I've spent too many years being overlooked and ignored in favor of Sarah's problems. I've watched her make bad decisions time and time again, only to have my mom swoop in and rescue her. But this time, it's different. This time, the stakes are too high. I know my decision is causing a rift in the family, but I also know that if I give in now, it will only reinforce the toxic dynamic that's been in place for years. Sarah needs to learn responsibility, and my mom needs to stop enabling her. As much as it hurts to be at odds with them, I have to prioritize my own future and my own family. So, am I the bad guy for not giving up my house? I'm still conflicted, but deep down, I believe I'm doing the right thing. Update 1. It's been a couple of weeks since I originally posted, and things have only gotten more intense. After standing my ground about the house, my mom stopped speaking to me entirely. I didn't think it would escalate this much, but she's been giving me the cold shoulder, refusing to answer my calls, and even told some extended family members that I'm being ungrateful and cruel to my pregnant sister. The guilt tripping is in full force. Sarah, on the other hand, has been trying a new tactic. After the initial shock and disappointment of me saying no, she reached out to me directly, but not with an apology or any sense of responsibility. Instead, she wanted to negotiate. She suggested that she and Matt only stay in the house for 6 months, just until the baby is born and we get back on our feet. She tried to make it sound like a reasonable compromise, but it didn't feel right to me. I told her no, again, and she immediately flipped the switch from reasonable sister to angry and betrayed. I've also had to deal with some unexpected fallout at work. One of my coworkers, who's distantly related to our family, heard about the situation and brought it up during a casual conversation. Now, I'm getting strange looks from some of my colleagues, as if I'm the heartless brother who's refusing to help his family. It's frustrating that this private issue has spilled over into my professional life. Julia, thankfully, is still my rock. We've talked a lot about how this situation is affecting our mental health, especially with how isolated I'm starting to feel from certain family members. I've made it clear to her that I'm not backing down, but the emotional toll is heavier than I expected. I didn't realize how far my mom and Sarah would go to paint me as the villain in this situation. Update 2. A few days ago, things escalated even further. My mom and Sarah decided to involve more family members, and before I knew it, they had arranged a family intervention of sorts. They invited me over for dinner under the guise of wanting to talk things out, but when I arrived, it was obvious that this was an ambush. My mom, Sarah, Matt, and even a couple of aunts and uncles were there, all sitting around the table. As soon as I walked in, the conversation turned into a full-on interrogation. My mom tearfully asked, "How can you turn your back on your sister during this time of need?" My uncles chimed in, saying things like, "You've always been the stable one, Adam. Why can't you be the bigger person?" Even Matt, who's usually quiet, had the audacity to say, "We'd do the same for you if you were in our position." I couldn't believe it. It felt like the entire room was against me. Julia wasn't there with me, which made it even harder to defend myself, but I stood firm. I told them that while I understand Sarah's situation is difficult, it's not my responsibility to fix her life. I explained again how much this house means to me and Julia, and that giving it up would be a massive sacrifice that we shouldn't be expected to make. My mom cried even harder, saying I was being selfish and that family is supposed to help each other. Sarah sat there in silence, arms crossed, as if waiting for me to give in to the pressure. But I didn't. I calmly told them that my decision was final, and if they couldn't respect that, it was their issue, not mine. I left that night feeling emotionally drained but also proud of myself for not caving. Julia was furious when I told her about the ambush, and we've decided to distance ourselves from certain family members for the time being. It's clear that this situation isn't going to resolve itself anytime soon, but I'm not going to let guilt or manipulation force me into giving up my home. As of now, the tension within the family is palpable. Some relatives have sided with me, while others are still firmly in my mom and Sarah's camp. It's sad to see the family divide like this, but I'm realizing that setting boundaries is essential for my own well-being. Am I still conflicted? Absolutely. But every day, I'm more certain that I made the right decision. Enjoyed the story? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more. Drop a comment with your thoughts or ideas for the next one. See you in the next video.